Hello everybody. I wasn't going to make this video, but it seems that the only way to get what I know out on the net is to put it on YouTube. So, what I want to talk about is something that I've just discovered. I can't believe that it's taking me so long to discover this or look at this, but I feel that it has to be made known. And one thing I want to state right from the start, that if anybody can see it, there's nothing I would like better than to be made a total fool of by missing something. So if anybody can see a flaw in this argument, or the arguments I'm going to give you, including where all this is going, please let me know. Please put a comment somewhere on where this video is posted, so I know that I have indeed missed something. I've been studying the anti-discrimination laws for about 2 weeks, going over every word of it. I've also been studying the pension rules. And for those of you who have seen this on the net, they know where I'm going. For starters, the first thing I want to draw your attention to is that there are 2 anti-discrimination laws. One in 1986, which was a federal law, and the other one was a reaffirmation of that law in 1991. Now, the 1991 Queensland Discrimination Act is virtually a clone of the Federal Act, though I think this was brought in because the states probably had an argument with the fact that the federal law didn't hold true in the states, because they had their own regulations under their own rights, so they brought in their own law but made it exactly as the 1986 law. Now, the next thing I want to show you or read to you is the actual law itself. You can look it up on the net. Discrimination Act of 1986, the Federal Act, discrimination on the basis of yada, 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 yada. You can read the Act. And then it says marital or relationship status. Now, I want you to keep that in mind. The 1991 Queensland Anti-Discrimination Act is an exact clone of that Act, and it also has as well the same thing in it, though in a different place, relationship status. That means any relationships, de facto, marriage, shacking up with someone, whatever. It doesn't matter. Now, I want you to also remember the implications of this, say, in getting a job are that if you go for a job, 2 people go for a job, one of them is single and one of them is in a relationship, that the employer cannot ask you, are you in a relationship? And if they get away with asking you, you can refuse to answer, which means that he can't employ you, even though you might be the better. He is saying that he won't employ you, even though you're the better person for the job, simply on the basis of your relationship. That is, you've told him your relationship, though you didn't have to. The relationship is known to the employer. Now, we know this. Similarly, he can't say, following on from this, well, under the anti-discrimination laws, I can't not hire you because you're the best person for the job. However, because you are in a relationship, I will hire you, but I'm going to pay you less money. That's even worse. He can't do that. Now, keep that in mind. So you do a job and he can't not pay you less because you're in a relationship. And there's a lot of this argument with women being employed, the fact that they're married or they're single. That's out the window. Now, I want to draw your attention, and I'm doing this because of the pension. I still can't believe I haven't twigged to this, and I can't believe the government has, but now I believe they do know about it, and it's deliberate. Here is a copy of the pensions per fortnight payment rates. There it is there, right? You can get it off the net. Anyone can go to it and get it. Now you'll notice that there are 4 columns there. Pension rate per fortnight. Single, couples each, couples combined, couples separated due to ill health. Now can you see where I'm going with this? I contend that not only are columns 2, 3 and 4 blatantly illegal under the Discrimination Act, that everybody who has been discriminated against is owed money from the time that they applied for the pension and misapplied and all. I'm going to explain to you because I wrote something that I put on the net under an alias, of course, and I'm going to read it because my memory's not all that good. I'm going to read it from start to finish. So if you're easily bored and you're not a pensioner, then don't bother with the rest of this video because it's not going to affect you. But it will do when you're a pensioner, right? So here is why pensioners who get married are punished, or in other words, there is a penalty for being married or in a binding relationship and telling Centrelink you are. Plus how pensioners get around it with impunity. If you are a single pensioner, you get $887.10 a fortnight. Now, if you're in a relationship, now I'll use the words if you get married, but if you get married is the same as if you are in a relationship, whether you're married or de facto or shacking up or whatever. But the key point is here, you tell Centrelink that you're in a relationship. And your partner is not a pensioner, that's one scenario, and she takes your surname or not, because you've told them you're in a relationship. It doesn't have to be your surname. It can be Mary Smith and Billy Blongs. You get half the married couple pension rate. You get half of it, which is $661.20 a fortnight, but only if you disclose it. If you are married and are separated due to one of ill health, you both get single pension rate. How is this fair under the statute, and under what statutory regulation is this imposed, and where is the bill passing this legislation? That's the tip of the iceberg. We're not even there yet. What this means is that a single pensioner who is really in a relationship can get a single pension rate, which is a little less than the extra $200 a fortnight. In other words, he gets nearly $200 a fortnight extra if he does the following. His partner is using her maiden name. He resides at the same address, or not, and pays rent, or not. He can claim rental assistance as well, and gets an extra $5,600 a year in pension. When his partner becomes eligible, or she may be eligible already, but if she becomes eligible because she's not at the time, she claims a single pension, and together they get over $1,700 a fortnight instead of $1,322. That's over $10,000 a year, just by not disclosing the fact that they're in a relationship. So what we have here, essentially, is a single pensioner is punished for being in a relationship and gets $200 a fortnight less, yet his partner, if she's not eligible for the pension, is not a burden on the system because she's not drawing a pension. But the mere fact that he's announced that he's in a relationship and his partner's not a pensioner, they take nearly $200 a fortnight off him. Yet she's no burden to the system. She's actually contributing to it. There is no way this loophole can be closed, the loophole about claiming a single pension when you are in a relationship. There's no way it can be closed or even detected by the very regulation it imposes. Job done. Only searching registered marriages for Australia and the world for 50 years can be, and even That doesn't account for exceptions, name changes, aliases, estrangements, separations, pending divorces, yada, 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 yada. Similarly, cross-matching addresses are a waste of time for obvious reasons. Well, obviously it's a waste of time. The two single people can be living in the same abode. There's no law against it. They can have a single pension. Right. In short, the government has created a deliberate, non-detectable, unaccountable method of circumventing an unjust payment system of pensions based on whether you are in a relationship and disclosing that fact to Centrelink. Okay, now to give you a for instance, this is how it can be circumvented, and then I'll get to the crux of the argument. The couple are married or not, are in a relationship. So if they're married, she kept her maiden name. Or if they're in a relationship, it doesn't matter, she's got a different name anyway. She owns the house outright where they live, no mortgage. Or not, doesn't matter, because the house is non-assessable at the moment. They both draw a single pension. He pays rent and gets a further rental assistance payment. She keeps the rent providing, and her pension is not affected, or his pension is not affected, depending which way it goes, as long as the amount of money he collects is less than a threshold whereby the pension is cut by a certain amount. You get it? And even then, the rent, only if the person paying the rent claims rental assistance is it known how much rent is paid to the other person. To add incense, this is a couple I know. To add insult to injury, she gets a disability top-up allowance because she's not well. He gets a carer's top-up allowance because he is her full-time carer. And the government has the hide the gall to punish people declaring where only one is on the pension, or both, in slashing the single portion payment by $100 a week for one or the other, or both, just because they announced, I'm in a relationship. In the above case known to me, the couple have received over the 4-year period I've known them, over $44,000 extra base rate, and that's not counting the top-ups. Just let that sink in for a moment, okay? Replay it and play it again. In the above-mentioned case, that couple between them get over $11,000 per year extra, and all they did was keep their names separate. That's all. They just kept their names separate. They didn't announce to Centrelink that they were in a relationship. How is Centrelink going to show they're in a relationship? What? Investigate every pensioner who's living with someone to see whether they're in a relationship because they didn't declare it? It's lunacy. But we'll get to the crux of this. Remember, right at the start, I said about the anti-discrimination law. The system is a disgrace. I don't begrudge any couple that circumvents this bullshit, but I do say that to punish someone who may be single, then gets legally married or announces they're in a relationship and discloses this to Centrelink is criminal. Now, I put this to Centrelink on the net from their official site. You know the reply I got back? Get a divorce. And I've got it. I've documented it. I have a copy of it. That was their reply from their official site. Get a divorce. I haven't got a name, but that was the reply. If columns 2, 3, and 4 were eliminated and everyone got the same pension, the following would be avoided. The discrimination laws would not be breached, right? And they are deliberately breached, and I'll explain that later. The massive amounts of money in chasing people down who followed the workaround would not be spent because it was next to impossible to enforce anyway. Now, what you got to remember here, I'm not talking about the dole. I'm not talking about dole payments, right? Where people want money for nothing. Now, there are circumstances where they're due the dole, that's fair enough. But we're talking about pensions here. Pensions is not money for nothing. Pensions is your money. It's money you've contributed to the system in 40 years of working life. So essentially, what you're getting back is a proportion, not all of it, 75% over the long term of your money. Right? Remember, it's your money. So forget about the dot. It's got nothing to do with unemployment. It's to do with pensions. You can't reduce the pension for a single pensioner by $100 a week. There'd be a mass outcry. You can't say, oh, well, we've got to reduce the pension then. And there'd be a massive request to be reclassified under the single rate, which the wording single rate wouldn't exist. It'd be one rate. In any event, there probably will be a massive request after this video to be reclassified under the single rate by following simple rules. Right? Admittedly, the simple rules or the simple tactics to circumvent the system is by their own edict illegal, but when their own edict is itself illegal, then circumventing something like that is in technical terms not illegal because the very precept is illegal under their own regulations. They made the regulation up and now they're deliberately breaking it and saying anyone who gets around it is committing an offence. You can't have your cake and eat it too. It doesn't work that way, not legally. Now, the system would go into meltdown and complete collapse if everybody, if they didn't remove this and they said tough titties, and everybody wanted to be reclassified under these simple arrangements, the system would collapse. They could simply become estranged or separated. Well, some people won't do that. Like I won't do it myself because I don't believe that's right morally, not economically. It is, I believe, it is unlawful to reduce the pension solely on the basis of marital status as disclosed to Centrelink. And I keep saying as disclosed. Sorry for the interruption. Again, sorry for the interruption. It's because of the video thing that I'm doing. And I think the last thing I said was, it is unlawful to reduce the pension solely on the basis of marital status as disclosed to Centrelink. Now, the assets test still applies, no matter what your marital status. In short, the system is overcomplicated, costs more money than it saves from any angle, can be readily circumvented without proof of fraud, contravenes the discrimination law, and the last one is prima facie for litigation through class action in the High Court. Sorry to be so quick. I'd like to see Centrelink taken through the High Court on behalf of every pensioner in Australia. Now, yeah, I have Centrelink on 3 counts. Not only this thing here, when I discussed this with Centrelink, they said get a divorce. In other words, they were giving me instructions on how to circumvent their own unlawful edicts. They were giving me instructions on how to circumvent. This unlawful edict will eventually fester in an exploding volcano, whether I do anything about it or not. Doesn't matter. I know I'll get my money that's owed to me, and then some eventually. But at what cost, which I'm going to get to very, very shortly. I'm closing in on it, so be patient. I've exposed this and is now known to all, so the longer it's not addressed, the harsher the circumstances under which the government will have to bear, and it won't be a pretty sight, either for pensioners, believe it or not, or for the country. To give you an idea of what's coming, pretend there are 100,000 married pensioners, conservative. Actually, there's 1.2 million, so you'll have to multiply this by 10 at the end of it. That means that every year, pensioners that have disclosed they're in a relationship are being shortchanged illegally by approximately $5,200 a year. So every year that goes by, they owe all those pensioners collectively $520 million plus interest. That's per year. Think about that. Multiply that by 10 because there's 1.2. I've got the statistics off the net. By 10, that's $5.2 billion a year. $5,200 million a year. If nobody addresses this, it's because of one of two scenarios. Now, we know this. They want it to fester. They being the cultural Marxist New World Order proponents, and I'm counting all three. That's the Liberals, the Labor, the Greens. They want it to fester. Because when it explodes, it will send this country, and it's won through the court, which it will be, because changing the Discrimination Act has dire consequences in itself. It'll send this country broke, which is the end game, people. Do you remember the end game? So they know about this. They must have. I mean, it's inconceivable that they didn't know about this. And they don't care. Because when it does explode, they'll be out of office on a beach in Fiji somewhere, which you'll be able to spot them because they'll glow in the dark through the Fukushima radiation of the seafood around the Pacific. The government will have to back pay every pensioner. This is the scenario in a relationship since 1991 and maybe all the way back to 1986. That's 30 years, or using the 1.2, that's $150 billion. Has Australia got $150 billion in its back pocket? What is this, a long-term back pay over a decade by doubling the pension, say, for the next 10 years for everybody? That's the only way you're going to do it without Australia going bust overnight. Right. That's 3.2. By the way, that's $3.2 billion a year. That's if they're still alive since at least 1991. A lot of people have passed on by then, of course, so that figure is all over the shop. A grand total of $75.5 billion. Let me repeat that. 75, that's only half the figure I just quoted. $75.5 billion. And this doesn't account for the illegal prosecutions to refund money back to the department. In other words, all the illegal prosecutions the department did to get money back from other people will have to be refunded. Now we carry on with the next bit because of the stupid program I'm using. It only allows me to go for so long. Somebody once said, I answered a question and said, well, the home is not accessible, which is true. And then they said, look, at the moment, well, you see, they can't win. Even if they assess the homes, you sell your house to your next of kin, a token payment or a contract, providing they're not on the pension. Otherwise, the house is accessible, obviously. Now you pay rent to someone who is not a pensioner and you don't have any assets. As long as the deed is in somebody else's name, you don't own it. And that's just one scenario. There's a dozen workarounds. So they can't win. And then somebody said, that's exactly what happened to us, etc., etc., etc. And my reply was, I contend that it's not only unjust, but illegal. And that's exactly what I'm saying here. Now, there's an end game in this, so stay tuned for more. Under the anti-discrimination law, it is entirely legal to not disclose your relationship. Remember, I mentioned that bit about going for a job. It is entirely legal not to disclose your relationship with anyone because by their own edicts, by the anti-discrimination law, doing so will incur a penalty. Right? It's a penalty. It's money you're owed. It's a penalty. They're taking money off you simply because you've declared your social status. You are bound by law not to disclose it for fear of being discriminated against. You see? Can't win. If you make the declaration, if you go in and make that declaration, it's by your own volition. And that's what they have. That's what they have. It's by your own volition. They tell you that you must make the declaration. But by telling you you must make that declaration, that's entirely illegal. You don't have to make that regulation. Get that into your head. You don't have to tell them your relationship under the anti-discrimination law of 1986 federal, 1991 Queensland. But if you do disclose it, it's assumed you do so at your own volition, which means you can't unring a bell, which means you agree to the penalty. You've agreed to the penalty. Even though it's illegal, you've agreed to it. That's why it would be entirely legal to not only tell them, or if you want to tell them anything, they can't. You can lie. That's get right. You can lie. Say, no, I'm single, because your edicts are illegal. Asking the question is illegal. So whatever you tell them after they ask you an illegal question, or after they do something that's illegal, whatever you tell them is not binding. Can't be, because it's illegal to start with. Under the law, you're not obliged to tell Centrelink anything concerning any relationship. Now we're going to carry on this to the ultimate end. All the people who have been prosecuted for lying, or to them for lying, which is not valid because it's illegal, about their relationship, they're entitled under the anti-discrimination law for legal and monetary redress, because the department has acted under a regulation that is in itself illegal. They're entitled to get all their money back. Now, what does this mean in the end game? Right, I'll have to stitch this video together because of this program I'm using. The end game is that by heuristics, and that's my forte, heuristics, in a process that blatantly obvious, right, in the process, it is impossible, improbable, and not even plausible that somebody in the department didn't see any of this from 1986 or 1991, or from when this was composed. Which means when somebody saw this, they either brought it to someone's attention, they were told to forget about it, sweep it under the carpet. But it has to be deliberate. In other words, they have to have said, well, we know it's illegal, but let's see how long it takes someone to wake up. Now, why would they do that? Because it's cultural Marxism, one world government endgame. If this goes on any longer, what's going to happen is that it will explode, and the end result is that all the monies that they're owed to every pensioner in Australia that this affects amounts to over $5.5 billion. And that's conservative. Could be double that, triple that, 4 times that. And that's to achieve their agenda, because the agenda in the one world government is to first break the country economically. And this is the best way of doing it. You commit something illegal, you let it ride until somebody sees it, and then in monetary redress, you cripple the country. Now, the only other way I can see, whereas you can forestall this, is for that the money they owe pensioners is given back to them over time by lifting the rate. They have to lift the rate. They've got no option, because they can turn around and say, well, we can't afford to give you all, $5.5 billion in one hit, right? Send out, put $5.5 billion in collective accounts all over Australia for pensioners this affects. No, they'll have to do something like double the pension rate until that debt that they owe by doing something illegal is paid off. The only other scenario, of course, is every pensioner in Australia say, oh, well, if we do that, we're going to cripple the country. So from now on, we'll all be transferred to the single rate. The other 3 rates will disappear. And there you go. From today onwards, or from today that's gone through the High Court and been ratified, everybody gets a single rate of $877.10, and those 3 scales disappear. And all the money that they will save anyway through investigation of all this rubbish, remember, it's got nothing to do with the dole or payments for nothing. This is pensions. Pensions. That's all it is. So that's what's going to happen. Eventually, that's what's going to happen. It will be exposed. I intend to be alive when it does expose. It will be exposed, and somebody will come out of the woodwork and do something about it, even if they're told to, short of assassination, shut up. Because now I've made it public. Now I've disclosed it. And as I said right at the start of this, if anyone can see any flaw in this, please, please, please point it out. Because I've asked everyone, all and sundry that I know, and they can't see, and they're astounded. They're flabbergasted. They're floored that nobody has seen this. And I'm sure even pensioners have seen this and have not questioned it and said, well, that's how it is, blah, blah, blah. And well, what can I do about it? This will crucify the government. This is the final nail in the coffin that will throw Libs, Labor, and to a lesser extent the Greens, because they're inconsequential anyway, into a black hole for all time. So I'm voting One Nation. Who are you voting for? Now, I've sent all of this to every legal entity I can think of on the net on Facebook, and I've sent it to other people of note. And so far, I haven't had a peep out of anyone. It's like the last thing that I brought up, and I did bring up something else, which I will make another video and point something else out. But nobody said anything, and I've been totally ignored. But here it is on the net. I've given it to you. Have a good think about it and see what can be done about it and what the consequences are and which way the pensioners and the government are going to go to fix that up.